Okay, let's start. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining this special Barchart webinar. This is a big crowd we've got out there today. I think this is a record for Barchart. Not totally surprised. I think when we start to talk about the combination of AI and agents and commodity analysis, there is a huge need for this in the market. So not surprised that we've got a lot of people interested in today's session. My name is Andrew Ward. I'm responsible for the commercial side of the commodities division here at Barchart. I'm joined by my colleague, Will Osnato. Will is a director of commodity data research and analysis. For those of you who don't know Barchart, we've now been organizing and disseminating market data for over 30 years. Some of you will know us through our free futures website, www.barchart.com. Some of you are probably taking our data through our data connectivity technology through to institutional clients. And I'm sure many of you here today are cmdtyView users. So we're excited to welcome you all and talk about these concepts. Like many of you, Will and I have spent a lot of years in the commodity markets, and I think when we talk about a release such as Carl, it probably becomes personal for us. Personal in the sense that when I look back over our careers, whether it's in a physical trader, financial trader, being an analyst for some of the biggest hedge funds in the world that Will has been, I sort of think back and collectively think just how much time we have spent chasing data, organizing data, writing research reports, writing morning wires, evening wires, trade recommendations, trade ideas. And I would just wish that we had products like this earlier in our careers, and Will and I would have probably saved a huge amount of time. And, you know, I think about that from our context, and then I think about it also from what many of you do on a daily basis, and it's extremely time consuming. Yeah, it's time consuming, and I see so many people in our great commodities industry going through a lot of repetitious and duplicate tasks. Yeah, you know, you think about the way your morning starts, whether you're checking markets, you're looking for key factors that are driving the markets, you're reviewing outside markets, you're trying to catch up with CFTC reports, you're looking at global changes in premiums around the world. And then you're trying to distill all that data and information into your way of thinking for the day. And we never have enough time. You know, just when you think you've got your arms around what's driving the markets today, you get distracted by a logistics snafu, or there's a customer that calls you, a farmer needs some attention, or you've got another internal meeting. So, you know, I think as an industry, we all kind of all grapple with that same challenge. And it's certainly been something that's been current in our thinking, in the way that we've approached the markets in the past. And I think that data aggregation and that issue is getting bigger, yeah, not smaller. So, you know, that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to Carl today. And that's, you know, for us, Carl is what we've built as a data organization with a really strong commodities bent. And, you know, I think about the work and the development that's gone into building this AI agent, and it's taken input and voices from people in various areas, people that have been physical merchandisers, people that have been hedge fund analysts, people that have stood in the pits in the options pitch. Yeah, and I think when you start to touch and feel and interact with Carl, you'll certainly see that this is far more than a regular chatbot. It actually feels and connects very much like a commodity persona and commodity personnel. So super excited to introduce you. This has taken a long time in the making. We've started this project sort of 9 months ago. It's gone through extensive training and modeling, and we'll talk you through that more in a little bit more detail. But, you know, the way I think about Carl is like having that inbuilt research assistant that sits on the side of your desk. Yeah, so having that really smart person to answer questions, to collect information, to compare data, and come up with ideas for you. So very much an extension of what you do on a daily basis. And I think about, it's that analyst that sits there and helps you in your daily workflows. They never take sick leave, never miss a release, never miss a report. So always up to date and constantly reviewing and calibrating the data from our Barchart data sets. So just a wonderful addition in that sense. Where I'm excited too is to see, Carl, as it progresses, not just doing that aggregation and pulling that data together, but it starts to do the work for you. Yeah, it can start to write reports for you. It can start to talk about option structures, create an email for your farmer, for your futures client, explain what that option structure actually does and what it should be used for. So it goes beyond just the aggregation and starts to really get in and help you with the work that you do on a daily basis. So anyway, I can sit here and talk theoretically a whole lot about Carl. Much better to see it in action. Over the next 25 minutes, we're going to walk you through exactly how Carl works. Will's going to show you a live demo with a few different market scenarios. What I would ask as an audience is that you start to submit questions for Carl via Will in our question section on the right-hand side of your screen. I know it's a pretty smart audience out there. I had a look at the attendee list before we started. I'm expecting some good questions for Carl. Without further ado, I'll hand over Will, and appreciate you attending and getting to know Carl in a lot more detail.
Great, thanks, Andrew, and happy to have everyone join us today as we sort of walk through Carl. I want to just spend a couple of minutes touching on some of the technical aspects of it to really give you a sense of why it's such a good agent. First and foremost, it really works well because it is built on top of the extensive data that Barchart provides. Barchart gives you access to over 60 global exchanges across futures and options, equities, and currencies. There's the Barchart news feed, which is incredibly important to give you context around that data. There's fundamental agency data. We have extensive physical commodity prices globally. And importantly, Carl has access to the user guide for Commodity View. So again, in giving you these responses, the data it can analyze makes it powerful, and then it can combine tips and tricks and advice on how to get more out of Commodity View when looking at this data. So it's not just an answer, but it can tell you how to then chart the data, look up symbols, how to manipulate your quote sheets, etc. So it's not just giving you an answer; it can also help you through your user experience on Commodity View. One of those other aspects of that is, I'm sure many of you used LLMs. It's natural language questions you can put in there. We've also have it so that you can ask it in any language. So for our international Commodity View users, that's particularly powerful. And then for the people in the audience who are looking to build some of their own AI tools on top of data, again, the reason this works so well is the quality of the data that is going into Carl. So certainly we can help you with your own data needs to build tools yourself. And so you can think of Carl as a proof of concept in that sense. One other thing, last thing I want to hit on the technical side is, again, this is an agent. So we've given it some instructions before it's going to give you any responses. Make sure it's using data to give you a response. It knows the syntax and symbology within Commodity View. So if you've ever used the root symbol of a futures and *0, *1 for the most active or front month contracts, it knows that symbology. It gives you truthful answers. It's not going to speculate or guess. It will tell you whether or not it can't do something that you asked it. And it's also not going to return code or things like that. It's going to give you a data-driven response with news and context around that data. So let's just touch again briefly on a few things that it does that we think it does particularly well. So the sort of top layer here, workflow, formulas, these are examples of how it's good for telling you how to use commodity view and how to get the most out of it, because I think a lot of our users don't fully appreciate everything that you have access to. So it could be, do you have a workspace, an existing workspace that covers a topic that's beyond futures? So in this case, like a Brazilian soybeans, it does. It'll look in the gallery for that. It can give you assistance on the equation that you need to create an expression and then add that expression to your quote sheet. On the second level, data and fundamentals. Again, obviously, it's going to have extensive access to all the futures data. It's perfect for pulling all of that. But then also on the fundamental side, you probably might not be aware that you could pull winter wheat crop conditions out of there, and it'll not only do a data analysis for you of that, but also give you the series, the symbols that you can then add in and create your own workspace. And on the last level, news and research. Um, it's really good at just giving you an overall news summary of the market. You can just say what's going on, and that'll be our first prompt when we go to the live demo. But also, I think particularly powerful that news in points in time. I can ask it why were fertilizer prices so high in 2022, because it has the entire historical news feed and access to the general web access. It does a really nice summary, because you're looking at price charts, and we all forget what happened years ago in certain markets. It's very good at pinpointing and summarizing the fundamentals of what were going on, driving the markets back historically. I had, in terms of research, I noticed that aluminum prices were near record highs. That's not my area of expertise, so I asked it to give me a summary of why they were so high. It outlined a nice 5 paragraph summary of some both longer term fundamentals and near term fundamentals. So particularly good at that. And then one last layer on the research is that it can then do some data analysis. So we can pull multiple symbols, do calculations on those symbols, um, a variety of things, looking at implied volatility. We'll give you some examples of where it can do actually fairly sophisticated. And again, if you've used LLMs and you know to be prescriptive about a variety of steps that you want an LLM to do, Carl can absolutely do this again because it has access to great information behind it. All right, so without further ado, why don't we start the live demo? First, let's show you where to get Carl. So in your top right menu, it is under that menu. And I do want to point out a couple of things while we're here. So this help guide, that's the user guide. And again, I mentioned Carl has full access to this. So it's learned everything in this user guide. So using Carl, that's a strong functionality that has the gallery where we have the pre-made workspaces, and is a good way to sort of explore all the data. Again, Carl knows what's in there and has an entire symbol list, so it's good at finding data that you have access to. All right, so let's open up Carl. First, you can have it overlay your current workspace, or you can pin it to the side. So if I pin it to the right, it pushes over my the rest of my charts. That might squeeze things, so you can maximize maybe one chart. So again, if you want to look at a price chart while we're going through some queries, that can always be useful. You can, if it's also pinned, that means you can also switch to different workspaces and it'll leave it pinned. All right, let's start off with, again, like I mentioned, maybe just a quick market summary. See, and what I don't want to read through all of this. Obviously, you guys will be able to experiment with it, but I just want to point out a few things that you can sort of expect to get in a response here. So, again, quick overview: a price table um, is going to be probably included in anything when you're asking about what's going on in the markets. And then let's focus on a little bit on the market drivers. So it's going to give you a couple of quick summaries here. What's going on in corn? Obviously, we're planting corn right now, so planting progress is significant. That's obviously weather is going to be impacting that. There could be something on the cash market and other markets. And then what you'll see a lot in these prompts, especially as we go through them, there'll be a follow-up. Do you want to see a chart of this? Do you want to check out something else? Cash bids? Do you want to know how to add this to a chart? So that's one of the nice features, like I mentioned, that you'll get in each of the prompts because it knows the user interface. All right, so as a follow-up to this, okay, weather concerns. It's mentioning uh, Iowa concerns about flash flooding. So why don't we give it a follow-up question here? We'll ask a weather-based question. It does have access to that. I've tested it to, you can ask it the differences between the GFS forecast and the European model. So it has access to quite a bit weather data. I'm asking it for the 7-day rainfall. Good, nice quick summary, immediate outlook, weekly totals. And because it knows I just asked about corn, it's going to give me a little blurb on impact on field work. And talking about the planning progress right in there versus the 5-year average. So perfect. It's even hit on a few things additional. Whereas if you just asked this by itself, it knew from the previous one that is why you're asking about this. And even asking about the weather, though, you can giving you a tip in commodity view to be able to look at some some weather forecast data. All right, so then now that we understand a little bit of the fundamental side um, with that prompt, why don't we look at technicals? I know a lot of people are interested in technical levels. We have a lot of indicators built into our charting functionality, but again, Carl can give you a quick overview of that. So just typed in some important technical levels, and let's see what it came up with. Okay, broken out by a couple different contracts, support and resistance levels, a little bit of blurb with them, um, and an overall summary referencing another thing, relative strength index. Okay, that's pretty solid. You can obviously, for those who are particularly specialists in the technical side, obviously you can ask it follow-up questions. It has access to quite an array of technical indicators. All right, to take it from a different angle. Let's ask it about some cash prices, because again, the data that's going into it is critical. You have access to Barchart's the largest database of North American cash bids that exists, 4,000 different locations. So you can ask it, and specifically, if you haven't used the zip code lookup tool within uh, commodity view under analytics grains cash bids, where you can access that database, look it up by zip code. That's one of the functions that's part of Carl. So it does particularly well. You don't have to ask it by zip code. You can ask by city, region, state. It'll give you a bit of a summary. So let's see how it does with that. That's the zip code for Decatur. So let's just scroll back up a little bit. All right, here are the current basis levels. Again, when you ask it for price things or data, it's probably going to give you a table, a little background on that, and a little bit of commentary on it. If you want to see more locations or different commodities, just let me know. So it's again prompting you to do follow-up analysis. So not just giving you your answer, um, but giving you ideas about how to dig deeper. All right. Why don't we take it one step further? We were talking about weather and planting progress. So let's try something a little more complicated. So putting in here, what's the planting progress in Illinois compared to the last 5 years, and give me the symbols. So trying to do two functions at once, both a comparative analysis as well as the symbols. All right. So quick summary here. I know plenty of you have spent your time pulling up the PDF from the USDA. Carl just did that for you. Current progress, last year, 5-year average. Spits out each of the last 5 years, gives you an idea. And then the symbols, because I asked it for the symbols, because this data, again, you have access to this in commodity view. Planting it merged, the active futures contract. And again, we also have the 5-year average. So you can follow up and ask it for more detailed questions about different symbols. You can say, give me a list of all the state level corn progress, planted progress symbols, and it'll spit out a table of that. A little market context, again, relating back to the 7-day forecast, because we asked about that previously, and that's obviously impacting planning progress. All right, let's try sort of a more data analysis on the market data side. That was on the fundamental side. So I'm going to ask it a bit about options. And again, if you haven't used the extensive option tools we have, just go under the options menu. We've added quite a few of these over the last 12 months. Strategy Builder is pretty special. The term structure of implied volatility and the volatility indexes are all pretty slick tools if you're in the options market. But again, going back to Carl, and you just want one piece of information that you don't need to go track down a specific symbol for a security, just what's generally implied vol been doing for corn recently. Let's see what Carl can come up with on that. All right, so decent amount of information here. Again, giving you some information about the recent trends, why, some bullet points about why that is, why that's happening. Skew watch, okay, interesting. Just pointing something else out in the data that it's getting, and then giving you a whole section on how to track that. So I mentioned the volatility indexes. So there's that gave you actually that teed that up perfectly. I wonder if it's listening to me too. But volatility curves and their symbol at the money implied vol. So again, giving you some additional ways to take advantage of this data in your commodity view. So that's again how we're sort of viewing Carl as not just giving you the answers, but giving you the tools to continue to do better work faster, and then take more advantage of your commodity view. Like I mentioned, looking up symbols that you didn't realize you had information for, getting quick to the answer when you're looking specifically for data analysis. And again, it can do and market research, market summaries, historical summaries. There's a lot of things that it's capable of doing. I can keep giving it prompts that we've tried before, but and at this point, I'd like to open it up and see what you guys would all be interested in learning, testing out Carl, and we'll see how that goes. And again, use the on your top panel, there should be a questions button up there. You can start adding those in.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking for the audience to provide questions around fundamentals or price. I mean, the other one that stands out to me right now is hard red winter crop conditions, particularly in Kansas. Does Carl have a view on how bad the conditions are relative to previous years, and then maybe how did maybe a July D spread react in other crop years that had you know poor crop conditions?
Would you say the which spread? July D's. Okay, July spread react. As you all know, you can hit typos and it'll still understand. So again, a fairly involved question, but it has the data in both of those situations: historical data about conditions, the July D spread. All right. All right. The Kansas crop is facing significant stress. I think a lot of you, if you're paying attention to the weather and in the hard red winter wheat area, that's certainly something you're aware of. But let's look at what some summary it did. All right, the current snapshot, the historical comparison, um, and let's look at what it says about the dynamics of the spread reaction. Okay, market is reacting to these through bull spreading, as you would expect. Okay, it's a quick snapshot of what happened today. Spread dynamics. Yep. So inversion risk spill over to corn. So it's giving you some uh, what has happened in the past, some summaries of what the market generally does under these conditions. And even because we asked about symbols before, I didn't even ask it to give you symbols. It threw those in there to give you some more to work with, and how to look at the spreads on your charts. So a fairly good summary on a fairly involved question, combining both current snapshot of data, historical data, and how the and market prices. So combining fundamentals and market prices at the same time is something that's particularly adept at doing.
I like it. Well, here's another one from Eric. Eric's asking, will Carl create a chart, let's say the RBOB versus WTI relationship? This is kind of live television, folks.
Yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure I can guess how it's going to respond, which is that should tell you how to do that. Yeah, it's going to be honest. It can't directly generate the visual chart image, but um, what it did was, okay, use a chart, quote board panel, a formula between the symbols to create a spread. It's going to explain why it did that calculation, give you some information, apply crack spread, how to add a chart in commodity view, clicking the plus button, entering that symbol. You have to put the squiggly lines around it. And and even suggesting use a spread matrix to look at um, uh, the variety of different multiple months across time spreads of a specific contract. So again, it's not going to pretend it can do something that it can't, but it will give you some background. It will tell you how to potentially arrive at your the tool or the chart you're trying to come up with, or the equation that you want to add into your quote sheet.
Very good. Let's keep going, Carl. I feel like Carl's doing very well. Can you give me an overview of corn exports out of the United States? Fairly vague type prompt for Carl.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this does it, because again, we have the FAS export sales report. All right, right there, right away, it's going to give you the latest highlights of the export sales report. Um, Robust little commentary on the pace, key destinations, market analysis, little about new crop market, a little bit of background on each of these. Inspection, talking about inspections, Mississippi River levels, barge traffic. So a lot of stuff beyond just the export sales report. It could have just given you a statistical summary of that competition, because again, it's reading news, because obviously there've been articles written about this. And again, once again, because we asked about symbols, it's going to give you some symbols to follow in there. And even again, uh, building on talking about a position and providing a fundamental floor of demand heading into the summer. Yeah, I would agree with that. Decent summary um, of the current snapshot. And again, if you want to, as you get a feel for any LLM, you'll understand, like, all right, maybe that wasn't exactly what I wanted. Let me get more specific, because I think, with any of these LLMs, the more prescriptive or specific you are with your responses, you can then narrow in. But even something like that, a very general summary, it does a pretty solid job of organizing the response and giving you a couple of different things to follow up on. Like if you wanted to specifically say, well, no, give me a real analysis of the total commitments versus the last 5 years, and you can give it a couple of bullet points for instructions. It can handle all of that, obviously, but even when you give it a fairly broad ask, it does a decent job of summarizing that information.
Yep. Here's another little challenge for Carl. How do I integrate the answers Carl provides into emails? So maybe you generate an email for a farmer or a customer or a upper management who want to understand why their cost of procurement in sugar is going up.
It might just say copy and paste, but so we'll see. Yeah, copy and paste, great. Now there's a copy button. Actually, I didn't even mention that. This is a little button. It's copy. If you want to start over, new conversation, because again, if you've used LLMs, you can see how it is keying off of previous things that we asked about. So it's thinking about corn weather. So if you want to switch gears into a different market, I would probably suggest starting a new conversation. And yeah, at the end here, it's like, do you want an executive summary of anything into a shorter format for a specific email? Yeah, that's what, obviously LLMs are particularly good at writing things. And as you can see, it organizes it pretty well, but if you wanted it in a different style, yeah, even telling you a tip about how to get stuff in Excel. If you're a Commodity View Pro user, you have the Excel add-in, and being able to pull some of this data into Excel, so you can create an Excel table and paste that in your email. So going above and beyond a little bit of what you were even asking for.
Yeah. Well, I got one here around forward curves. I'm not 100% sure of the question, but can you compare forward curves? Let's say the current forward curve to where the forward curve was 30 days ago and where the forward curve was 60 days ago. So just trying to think of the syntax that we'd put together there. I guess it's a corn forward curve today versus minus 30 versus minus 60, question mark. These are great questions too, by the way. Appreciate them. I think you're spot on, and you're getting a good feel as to how Carl comes together.
All right, significantly higher. All right, there you go. Spat out a table, current prices, 30 days ago, 60 days ago. Key observations, parallel shift higher. Yep, that's generally true. Since late Feb. More aggressively in new crop. Yeah, so again, a bit of a summary. Obviously your table, that's probably what you want. And a little bit of, again, more context around it, different ways of summarizing what the price action has been. And now, since we asked about an email previously, a little idea for that. And again, another tip: visualizing the curve in commodity view. You can open up the forward curve panel, and to use the historical overlay feature. So that's something, again, in your charts, your forward curve, and that's exactly what that panel can do. You can add historical curves to it. So if you weren't aware of that, it's already teaching you something.
In the commodity view functionality. Will, do we have time for a couple more? I'm starting to get some concentration around historical cash bids. Can we maybe look at a location and see any historical trends over the last 3 years in cash bids? Would Carl have a view on that?
It might. I've tested a few things. Let's try it. I've tested a few things. I'm not sure it totally understands the historical database as opposed to the snapshot, but why don't we give it a try and see? Yep. All right, so we're looking at the historical. What is the trend in corn basis for, let's just say, Des Moines over the last 3 years? This is an interesting test. I do not know how it's going to respond to this. All right, let's see. Oh, came back with quite a bit. All right. Oh, good. Okay, so it pulled our basis index for Iowa, so that's a symbol for that. So that was a good place to start, giving you significant volatility. Of course, it should there were some things that happened in there, so not surprising. Plus, there's a decent amount of seasonality to it. Year by year breakdown. So again, you already hit on a couple of things. Which, if you didn't know, we built indexes on top of the cash bids that you have access to. We aggregated cash bids to county, state, and national level, so you can look at some of these aggregates and get these more historical trends, as opposed to trying to just look at the snapshots of the current basis. That's what the indexes are great for. There are some pre-built workspaces for the corn, soybean, and wheat indexes in your gallery. Gave you a sort of breakdown year by year, key drivers of the current trends. Yeah, so all pretty good. That was better almost than I was expecting. Again, telling you the symbol.
That's powerful stuff right there, Will.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
About how long that takes to aggregate and pull that together.
Yeah, and then telling you to do it with the seasonal chart. Seasonal charts, if you guys haven't used those a lot, again, particularly good for basis and the basis index, where you can chart anything. In this example, the blue line, this is just corn prices against a long-term average, and as many years back as you want. Particularly good in basis. You can do that for our rolling spot series for a particular location. You can do that for the whole index. You can do that for international basis series that we have. You could do it for spreads in the futures market, or between markets. The seasonal chart is a particularly powerful tool. So definitely take advantage of that.
I do have one more, Will, but it's from one of those Durham guys, and the Durham guys always make our life difficult. Yeah, so I don't hold much hope for Carl, but any can we show cash Durham bids for the 25-26 crop and a high low where it's traded this year?
Okay. Notable decline over the last year. Oh, interesting. Okay, I pulled one of our special index symbols. We do have Durham within the cash bids, as well as some other series. So there's quite a number of different cash Durham prices we have. Notable decline over the last year from the highs last spring. Okay, give you the range, current price, period breakdown with some commentary. It's all pretty good. And when you take a closer look at it, obviously you can, if you're deep in the market, um, you'll see how much you agree or disagree with some of the specific commentary. But again, it's again good at pulling news at the time. So it's pretty good at lining up some commentary and context for historical price moves. And giving some additional new crop bids, spot bids, sort of splitting those two out. And a technical summary. So yeah, pretty good.
That's terrific. I mean, to me, that's just beyond expectations. Yeah, probably relevant to remind people that this is works in multiple languages. Yeah, so we could get answers in Portuguese. We could translate these answers to Portuguese. Certainly has a lot of flexibility on that front for our international customers. We've talked a lot about grains and oilseeds. It works for the same data around equities, the same data around the softs market, whether we asked it questions on coffee or cocoa or sugar. It's exactly the same process, and leveraging the same data sets that we maintain and manage.
Yeah, that's again just to sort of reiterate what we think it's good at. But it's again good at this because of the data that's underlying it. And so for everyone on the call, want you to appreciate sort of more of the data you have access to in CommodityView. more the tools you have access to, and leveraging Carl to speed up your research process, get more out of your user experience with cmdtyView, explore data, explore the tools, and then export those to written things, so you're not wasting your time trying to verbalize what's going on in the market, if you're in the market intelligence, or just for your own education, leading you down the path of further analysis, again, to be smarter about the markets.
Brilliant. I think that's a really nice ending point, Will. We've covered a lot in a short amount of time, and I think it's just such a hot topic around LLMs and these agents. We're obviously super proud of what we've built. It's available today. Anyone with a cmdtyView subscription, you can find that there in the hamburger menu. For those who would like to play around and explore and have someone give you a one-on-one demo, certainly happy to organize that. Other people that might be building their own models, looking at their own data requirements, obviously happy to have conversations around supplying data to your models via our data connectivity technology. So lots of options. We've come a long way in a very short time. Best way to contact us will be through www.barchart.com in the For Business section under Solutions, and we'll give you ample opportunity to follow up with you directly. But super appreciative of your time and your attention. As I say, we couldn't be more excited about what we're doing. We just think it's going to make people's work lives, their analysis and understanding of the markets so much sharper, so much more efficient, and save a bunch of time and energy and reducing duplication. So on that note, I'll sign off. Thank you, Will. Terrifically insightful, and wish everyone the happy and successful rest of the day.